Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business News Afternoon Report for Friday the 13th of September 2024. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon we've got 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Story number 1, the S&P ASX 200 closed up 0.3% to 8,100 points today, taking the weekly gain to just over 1%. It peaked today at 8,143.6 points, just 5 points off the all-time record set in August. Gold miners were the standout sector, with West African Resources, Perseus Mining and Evolution Mining all surging. Hope of more fiscal stimulus in China boosted the big miners. Fortescue Metals Group jumped 5%. Oil prices were also higher, helping both Woodside and Santos. Some of the lithium companies which jumped in recent sessions were among the worst performers today. The big banks were also lower. In corporate news, Singapore-based Olam Agri has lifted its bid for Namoi cotton to 75 cents a share from 70 cents and noted that its offer is nearly 12% more than the 67 cents a share offered by the Louis Dreyfus Company. Olam Agri said it's in discussion with the Australian competition regulator and is confident of a positive outcome. Toll road group Atlas Arteria will proceed with a compensation claim against the French state after the French Constitutional Council ruled that a new tax applicable to companies operating long-distance transport infrastructure is compliant with the Constitution. Problem is the tax hits Atlas's earnings and it wants compensation. Story number 2, plenty going on in international markets, with gold today hitting a new record of $2,570.28 an ounce. That's US dollars. It followed the European Central Bank cutting interest rates for a second time overnight. The US Federal Reserve is widely tipped to start its interest rate cutting cycle next week. Oil prices are rising as Hurricane Francine moves through offshore production areas near Texas. Over 730,000 barrels per day, or nearly 42% of Gulf of Mexico oil output, was shut due to Francine yesterday. That's according to the US Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement. On Wall Street overnight, both the broad-based S&P 500 and tech-heavy Nasdaq closed up around 1%. And in Beijing, Chinese President Xi Jinping called on government officials to help achieve the country's annual growth target of 5%. Story number 3, Tesla and ex-owner Elon Musk has called Australians fascists for threatening to fine social media giants for enabling misinformation. He reposted a story on X from Reuters about the federal government's push to fine internet platforms 5% of their global revenue for failing to prevent the spread of misinformation. He added one word to the post: fascists. There you go. Both NDIS Minister Bill Shorten and Opposition Leader Peter Dutton played down the tweet. Shorten put it pretty nicely. He said, and I quote, "Elon Musk has had more positions on free speech than the Kama Sutra. When it's in his commercial interests, he's the champion of free speech, and when he doesn't like it, he's going to shut it all down." Story number 4, Australia has signed a deal with the German government for $660 million of shared investment in Australian hydrogen projects as part of a joint initiative to support supply of low-emissions fuel to the European market and help replace Russian gas. The deal, according to the Fin Review, is underpinned by the H2 Global program, a funding initiative supported by the German government that seeks to close the gap between the price of producing hydrogen and its derivatives and what customers are prepared to pay. The joint funding arrangement was signed this morning. Australia now has a pipeline of more than $200 billion of proposed hydrogen projects, but progress in the emerging industry has been slower than hoped, as project backers struggle to find customers willing to pay premiums for greener fuel and to make their ventures economic. The funding will be available over the next 10 years and will involve guaranteed offtake arrangements for production. Meanwhile, it's been confirmed that US President Joe Biden will host the Quad leaders, that's of Australia, India and Japan, in his hometown of Wilmington, Delaware, next weekend. And finally, story number 5, Donald Trump ruled out another presidential debate against Kamala Harris overnight as her campaign announced a massive fundraising haul in the hours after the two candidates met on stage. Trump, the Republican nominee, posted on Truth social media, in all caps, that there will be no third debate. Ms. Harris's campaign revealed that it had raised $47 million from nearly 600,000 donors in the 24 hours after her debate against Mr. Trump. This week's debate was the first time that Mr. Trump and Ms. Harris had met in person, and the vice president largely controlled the tenor and was able to bait her opponent into agitated responses, some of which contained, what do we call them? I suppose exaggerations and mistruths. That's it for the afternoon report for Friday, the 13th of September, 2024. Don't forget to hit follow on the podcast and find Fear and Greed on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. Join Michael Thompson and I tomorrow morning for the weekend Fast 5 by Fear and Greed. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your evening.